We're just 51 days from Election Day, and while it's gearing up to be quite the battle on the ballot, Kamala Harris is also preparing for a potential fight post-Election Day. Her campaign has added Mark Elias, a top election lawyer in the country, to take on what she anticipates will be challenges from Republicans, alleging voter fraud and potentially the outcome of the 2024 election itself. Are we about to see Hanging Chad 2.0? I hope not. Joining me now is the founder of Democracy Docket and a partner at Elias Law Group, Mark Elias. Mark, my friend, you are one of the busiest men that I know, so I'm grateful for you taking the time to join us today. I wanted you to start off by explaining to our viewers, there's a three-part strategy that Republicans have deployed to subvert this year's election. Walk our viewers through that.
Yeah, so thanks for having me. First of all, a big fan of yours. The Republican plan for 2024 is first to make it harder for you to vote, right? If you're out there watching this, you should know that the Republican Party and its lawyers are right now in courthouses around the country trying to make it harder for you to be able to cast your ballot, for you to be able to register, and for your vote to count. So that is the cornerstone of their program. The second is that they want to be able to harass and intimidate voters and election officials and be able to challenge their ballots. So what do I mean by that? Because it sounds like a lot of hyperbole. But the fact is, again, right now, the Republican Party and their allies are in court saying that they have a First Amendment right to harass voters, a First Amendment right to intimidate election officials, and they are promoting laws and court cases to allow them to submit long spreadsheets of names of people they have never met, they do not know, and ask those people to be removed from the rolls so they cannot vote. And then the third part of the plan that they have, as we've seen already play out in states like in Georgia, is to challenge the certification process, to essentially, after all the ballots have been cast, to put a thumb on the scale in whether they certify accurate results, whether they certify them on time, or whether they empower their election deniers in local office to subvert those results.
So, Mark, the Harris campaign is having you oversee potential recounts for Election Day. Why is it so important to be ready, to have a legal team ready to go, especially with her campaign?
Yeah. So look, let me say, it is a honor to be part of a large team of lawyers who are working for the vice president. I was proud to have represented Kamala Harris in the U.S. Senate. I was proud to be her general counsel when she ran in 2020, and to have done a similar role that I'm doing now for President Biden in the aftermath of 2020. The role of the team here and for lawyers is to make sure that every eligible voter can vote and have their vote counted. What we see on the other side, though, by Republicans is a political party that has stopped doing voter get out the vote, has stopped saying that they need to encourage people to vote. In fact, they demonize voting. But instead, Donald Trump has told the RNC to focus solely on these voter suppression and other tactics. So there will be lawyers ensuring that the process is fair and that everyone's able to cast their ballot and have it counted. And I think that's part of the essence of democracy.
So I'm going to do a pitch that you didn't ask me to do, but I'm going to tell everybody to go and subscribe and follow the Democracy Docket at the website, what you guys are doing, because not only is it informative, but it also is keeping track of the voting cases. You noted yesterday we hit 200 voting cases for this election cycle. The 200th case, and this is the one I wanted to really talk to you about, that milestone case deals with electronic IDs at the University of North Carolina. That university actually took the time to ensure that an electronic ID, those used by students and faculty, that could count for purposes of providing and verifying identity to vote. Why should Americans that aren't at the UNC or in North Carolina care about litigation that's being brought by the RNC in that state to prevent users of electronic IDs to use those when they go to vote?
So the reason why everyone should care about this is because it puts to bed the lie that what Republicans want is just ID, right? North Carolina already has one of the strictest ID requirements in the country. And the University of North Carolina is not just some college or university. It is the flagship university of the state of North Carolina. So the ID that UNC put together is a state-issued ID. Right. This is exactly what it is Republicans claim they want. They want people to have to use state-issued IDs. Well, guess what? The University of North Carolina issued state-issued IDs in electronic form to their faculty and their students, and the RNC is still suing over that. So it is not about them wanting election integrity. It is they do not like the idea that students are able to vote. They think that those students may vote against their interests, and so they are looking to disenfranchise those students. And it's not going to work, and they're going to lose this case.
You know, Mark, what's also important is we obviously are interested in what happens in the race to the White House, but things that are happening in folks' backyard, I often like to say democracy is local. A lot of times people dealing with democracy, those are things that are down the street when they go to pull a permit to build a house, or they deal with maybe the dog catcher. The reason why I bring up this is because you were instrumental in ensuring that Amendment 3 in Missouri, this idea of being able to have access to reproductive freedom, having that on the ballot in November, you were instrumental in ensuring that it got back there. We have Amendment 4 here in Florida, same idea. Why is it that your battles are not just national, right? They don't have national implications, that some of the battles that you're doing legally are happening within people's backyards in their own states?
Yeah, look, first of all, let me just say it was other lawyers who brought the case in Missouri, so credit to them. I don't want to take credit for their work, but your point is still taken, which is that most of election administration is at the local level, right? We don't really administer elections at the federal level, and we don't really do most of our democracy at the federal level. So much of our democracy takes place at the state level, at the local level, with ballot initiatives, with referenda, and with the rules about how people register to vote and how they vote and have their votes counted. And if we aren't paying attention to what is happening in the local courthouses, if we aren't paying attention to what's happening at the local canvassing boards, in the shopping centers where people are collecting signatures, then frankly, we are missing out on where most of democracy takes place.
And Mark, before I have to let you go, obviously we look at Georgia as one of the big battleground states, but it's also one of the most active legal states when it comes to voter integrity. A bench trial has now been scheduled to occur in October, dealing with this attempts by the Georgia State Election Board to create more obstacles to certifying elections. Talk about what our viewers should expect to see. It will be broadcast so we can see it and listen to it as it happens in real time, that bench trial.
Yeah, which is, by the way, really great, by the way. And Katie,
Yes.
I know you've been a fan of this as well. Like, I think that more courts should open up their proceedings to television so that people can see what's going on there. You're exactly right. Georgia is one of the most heavily litigated states, along with, as you can imagine, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Arizona, Nevada, right? But Georgia is part of ground zero, and it's there because the Republicans took over the state election board. And Donald Trump called out 3 of the 5 members for passing a rule that is clearly aimed, or actually a series of rules that is clearly aimed at trying to allow election deniers at the county level who sit on these local boards to refuse to certify elections or certify inaccurate elections or don't certify them on time. And that, is the reason why Donald Trump knows the names of 3 of the 5 election board members and called them pit bulls, right? And so the Democratic National Committee, and kudos to them and their lawyers, brought this lawsuit because that rule by that board is contrary to state law. And I'm confident that the DNC is going to win that case and that we will ultimately have accurate elections certified come November in Georgia.
Mark Elias, grateful for you battling in the legal arenas for democracy and for being a friend of the show. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you.